Hey Rummies, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be giving you my top 10 rum tasting tips to help you appreciate and drink and enjoy neat rum more. Hey there, I'm Steve the Barman and I'm here to help you on your rum journey by mainly focusing on rums under 50 quid. But we do, over the 3 channels, we do kind of sometimes explore more expensive rum. So today, rum tasting tips, how to drink, how to enjoy rum more. Now, I'll be honest, a lot of it is actually finding your own way, finding your own methods. But this is what I got taught many years ago doing the WSETs or WITSETs, whatever you want to call them, but sort of the spirits tasting qualifications. So I did a little bit of wine, but mainly sort of the spirits sort of stuff. This is where I got taught this. And I'll be honest, when I do go back to the basics and do kind of follow this advice and the advice of others, I do actually learn and enjoy rum more. It's just laziness. We all do it, don't we? We all get a bottle of rum and pour it into the glass and just go, oh yeah, and then dive in straight for a little try, straight for a little tipple. But if you follow these 10 tips, you are going to be well on your journey to picking out different noses, picking out different flavours, and training your palate and knowing what styles of rum to sort of buy in the future. So here we go. Tip number 1, before you even start, take flipping notes. You can do it in a couple of ways. I used to, and I still do from time to time, use a kind of little notepad and a pen. Sort of write down what I'm tasting, write down a score on that. But there is a genius app. This is not a paid promotion in any ways, but there is a genius app out there called RUMS. I'll flash it on screen now. That helps to record your own personal kind of opinions on that. I have heard feedback where people are like, oh, I don't really want to, I don't want to sort of other people to see my tasting notes. Don't worry about it. Get involved. It's the whole thing. The beauty is when you take notes, you can then revisit these notes 6 months' time, 3 weeks' time. See how the rum has changed. See how your palate has changed. Because that's the beauty. Without taking notes, you have no kind of basis of where you kind of go to in the future. So that is the crucial thing. Take notes. Handwritten RUMS. Now tips 2 to 5, we are still way before tasting the actual rum. We're talking about nosing, getting the aromas, letting your nostrils acclimatise to the flavours, the aromas that you are smelling. So tip number 2, the first thing that I'm going to do, take a bit of rum, pour it into an empty glass, kind of swill it around the glass, coat the glass. So you've got all those rum kind of flavours in that glass and then discard it, okay? Now, smell the glass. What are you picking up? Write down what you are picking up or put it in RUMS. From this, chocolate, vanilla, caramel, there is this slight sort of woody note. Now, the interesting thing is, now compare it to what you're getting in with rum actually in the glass. Does it change? Is there any difference? Does the aroma, the residue, smell any different to the actual rum itself? And I would say that's actually slightly fruitier. So always kind of compare and remember to write those notes down. Now tip number 3 helped me massively. This was something I was never taught, but I kind of found this out about 3 or 4 years ago. It's actually a funny story, stems back to the days when I used to do espresso martinis and cocktails on my channel. I had massive sinus issues. I couldn't say the word espresso. Because everything got blocked up there. Now, what's that got to do? Basically, I could only say espresso. So what's that got to do with smelling and aromas? Well, if you smell with, I'll turn off there. If you smell with your mouth closed, all you're doing is the aromas are kind of getting locked away in your sinuses. They don't really kind of hit the back of your throat or anything like that. However, if you smell with your, take a nose with your mouth open, that really does allow the flavours to really explode around the sort of your back palate there. So smell aroma with your mouth open. Does take some practice and you feel really, really stupid doing it, but it really does help you pick out different flavours. Now, tip number 4, this goes back decades, absolute decades. It's one of the first things I ever got taught. palm of your hand, put a little bit of rum in your palm of your hand, not too much, a little bit of rum in your palm of your hand. And then basically what you're going to do is you're going to coat your hand and then just rub it until you dry your hands. Okay, so just really rub like that. And then what you're going to do when they're dry, you can have a little aroma now, a little whiff now, but when they're dry, when there's nothing left on them, now cup your hands together, really take a mouthful in. That is fantastic. The vanilla is amplified. The caramel is amplified. I don't get too much of the sort of the wood, the barrel aging in that by doing that. It's a softer kind of aroma that I'm getting, but really does help focus and concentrate the mind. So again, once you've taken that sort of, got those aromas, write them down. If they are any different to what you've been getting, write them down. And then tip number 5, before we dive into tasting, we're going to taste some rum in a second, don't worry. But tip number 5, this was one of the very first things I got taught doing spirits level 2, whatever the hell it was called back then. There's always a lot of stories about coffee granules or coffee, you know, resetting your nose. Rubbish, because all you're going to get is coffee. You know, when you smell that, yes, you're resetting your palate, you're not getting rum, but then all you're getting is coffee. And coffee is a big note sometimes in some rums, especially heavily aged rums. So don't do that. The advice from, you know, this is not me. This is like the world over. This is experts telling you this. The one place you can reset your palate is in the pit of your elbow there, because you are your own natural scent. Okay. Assuming you haven't put Lynx Africa on or whatever on these days. That is the easiest place to smell where you've had no contact with anything else, and it's your natural scent. So just bury your nose in. You look stupid, but get you a natural, and that just instantly resets your palate. You are not going to be smelling anything else of that apart from your own body odor, body scent. If you're a bit smelly, have a shower. But that is how you reset your palate. Don't use coffee, use your elbow. This video is proudly brought to you in association with Stratford Soda, and I'm on a mission to make these UK famous because I flipping well love them. They are perfect mixers for rum and pretty much the only brand dedicated to rum in the UK, mixer brand. They're perfect for people like me that are A, too lazy to make cocktails and love like an easy highball, and B, for also people like me that can't handle too much fizz or too much gas because they are low in carbonation, low in sugar, and they're made with natural fruit juice as well. Currently 4 in the range. The long daiquiri, as I call it, the citrus, which is for daiquiri lovers, is perfect highball, absolutely perfect. You can add mint to it as well, an easy mojito, job done. We've got the tropical, which I'm actually drinking today, and I've paired it actually with a coconut rum just for a bit of fun. But the tropical is pineapple and coconut, amazing. We've got the hedgerow, which is blackberry and rose, coloured up with blackcurrant juice, and we've got the spiced, which a lot of people think, oh, it's the ginger beer. It kind of is, but it's cinnamon forward with a hint of ginger, and it's amazing. So if you want to try these, if you're in the UK, you can get 50% off your very first order of a taster pack or the party pack. There's a link in the description of this video below, and that link will auto populate your discount at checkout. So if you're in the UK and you want to try them, you've got absolutely no excuses. So you'd be pleased to know tips number 6 to 10. There is a bonus tip number 11, but it's tips number 6 to 10 are all about tasting the rum. So the first thing you need to do, if it's your first rum, if it's the first sort of sip you've had of that rum, the very first thing you need to do is let your palate acclimatise. So put a little bit in a glass and just take a sip and hold it in your mouth for about 15, 20 seconds. Just hold it there. Let it kind of, the one way I just say it, let it kind of burn your tongue, burn your palate. That's what it's doing. It's letting your palate and mouth acclimatise to the flavours it's about to get. So hold it there, 15, 20 seconds. And then once you've done that, swallow it. See what kind of a taste you get off that and write them down by all means. But the trick is when you now go for a little bit of a second sip, your palate is acclimatised. Even at 54%, that's what this is. It's much more user-friendly on the tongue, on your gums. You really start to pick out flavours. As I'll keep going to say, write them down. What you're getting, there is no right or wrong, only what you can kind of taste. Now, tip number 7 is similar to wine. You have to let a rum, well, you don't have to, but if you let the rum breathe, pour it, sit it aside to 15, 20 minutes, let it breathe, let it acclimatise to room temperature out of the bottle, let it get used to its glass, its surroundings. That's when you're going to start to get the true character of the rum coming out. So just put it down to one side, 15, 20 minutes, disappear, go away, then come back to it and then take some more notes. What are you taking? Are you getting anything different? For me, a lot of the times when it sits, the sort of the wood barrel aging kind of disappears into the background, and that's when I kind of either get the fruitier notes come out or the sort of more chocolate, the coffee, caramels, toffee there. I don't really get them first off straight out of a bottle, but 15, 20 minutes later, that's when the palate, that's when the rum explodes with taste. Now, tip number 8, I think this is vitally important, is actually tasting rums that are similar in style to get kind of a reference point. If you just, let's just try, I don't know, I've got a few, well, no, we can go Jamaican here. Let's just go Jamaican. If you picked out Worthy 8, for instance, you could sort of compare that to a Barbados. You could kind of compare that to an El Dorado. But I would actually try and narrow it down slightly more to other Jamaican rums. You know, maybe compare it to the Worthy Park, if you've got something like that. Similar sort of styles to rum, a reference point, or especially a rum that you are used to. A good, actually thinking about it, a good example here would have been the Plantation. I know a lot of people actually have got it here, the Plantation. Now this actually has a bit of dosage, it's a little bit sweetened. Not too much, but it's got a little bit of sweetness to it. Now, if you kind of tried that and then went alongside the Dawley's 5, which is unsweetened, you know, you can have a very sort of an overriding view of what Barbados rum is all about, especially if you then add something like Mount Gay Black Barrel into the equation as well. So tasting rums of a similar vibe give you those overall characteristics of what a country, of what a distillery can produce. Now, tip number 9 is all about adding some water to your rum. Now, you can do this for 40% rums, bearing in mind you are taking the ABV down, so adding too much water, you're going to be drinking maybe a 30, maybe a 20%, depends how much water you add. But actually this is more kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? But more, you kind of want to do this more with your 50s, your 55s, your 60% rums, because this really kind of then brings the 60%-ish, give or take, down to maybe 50 or 45, and you're still getting the rum characteristics without diluting them too much. Now, if you've watched Ralphie and his whiskey reviews, Ralphie, I'm not saying he does it wrong at all. You know, he's the god. He is the god with whiskey tasting. You go and do that. But Ralphie will do a spoon. You know, he'll kind of use a little bit of water in there and kind of spooning. A spoon is about 5 ml. So you're adding, for me, you're adding, depends how much water you've got in a spoon. And you might, if you use a tablespoon or a teaspoon, it's even more. So what I would actually advise, if you've got an old bitters bottle, especially one with a pipette, you can then get more accurate and you can add set amounts of water. For instance, we've done this experiment now plenty of times on here. A pipette, we used to go back in the old days, I used to just do that, and that was kind of a dash. What I've actually found now is that if you have 12 drops is the about of one of these pipettes is the about equivalent of 1 dash, and it's roughly about 1 mil of water. So depending on how much rum you've actually got in a glass, you can actually control the amount of water you are adding just by adding a few drops here and there. Now what water will do, all the sort of water solubles in your rum, in your whiskey, whatever you're drinking, will kind of sort of rise to the top. And that's, you know, the water brings out the kind of the aromas, the flavours, different flavours in there. So by adding that, you are bringing more kind of flavour to the surface, but also diluting it down slightly more to give you a very different taste. Now, tip number 10, remember there's one more coming. It's a bonus tip. Tip number 10, and it's one that I really don't do enough of, and I should. I'm so guilty of this, but this is 101 as well. This is like wine tasting, bartender, spirit tasting 101. Don't reset your palate with tap water, still water. Reset your palate with sparkling water. Sparkling water and the bubbles actually reset your palate. neutralize your palate, especially kind of a bottled sparkling water as well, as opposed to soda water, because you've got the minerals in there. Kind of does reset your palate to a more neutral state than what tap water will do. So by, you know, after you've tasted the rum, reset with mineral, sparkling soda water, whatever you've got, more often than tap water, and that way you can come back and you can get different kind of tastes, different aromas, different tastes on the rum. Now, tip number 11, the bonus tip, and this should be an obvious one to a lot of people, but once you've tasted the rum, don't just kind of finish it, unless you've got a little dram. But what I've done with all my drams, doing a box down there, I kind of come back to them 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 months, 6 months later. I want to revisit it because I've taken the notes. I use RUMX when I've got it, or my little notepad. I'm going to try and use RUMX a lot more in 2023. But I want to come back to RUMX like 6 weeks later, have another little sip and think, what was I thinking there? Or, oh, that's developed more. Because it could be one of two things. The rum with more oxygen coming into the bottle, or especially into the little drams in there, you know, it's going to react more. So the rum might have changed, your palate might have changed. But the one thing you won't know unless you take those notes, I'm drilling it into you to take notes. Unless you take those notes, you will never know. So there are my top 11 tips. If you've got any more tips, then dive into the comments below and help the community out. Or if you disagree adamantly with something that I've said, then come and let's have a fight in the comments. Let's get into it. But hopefully that will help you on your rum journey. And if you want another video to help you on your rum journey, to help you appreciate spirits and rum more, dive into that video right there.